Welcome to the Knowledge is Powder podcast, a podcast about skiing and snowboarding. I am Jim Duncan and I'm joined by ski industry stalwart Iain Martin from Skipedia. Hi Iain.
Hi there Jim, how are you?
There he is. It's called the Knowledge is Powder podcast because, like all good things from the late 90s, it's revival time. And why not bring back something as popular as that? But Iain, why don't you just tell us, what is Knowledge is Powder? Where did that come from?
Gosh, well, when I first started up natives.co.uk as a business back in 1999, I was searching around for a strapline, and I have no idea how or why that one came to me, but it came to me at the time, and obviously it doesn't mean anything at all, knowledge is powder, does it? But it worked quite well on t-shirts that we sold at the time.
I've still got many of those t-shirts. So in today's show, we are going to be talking about the jump, Listex, the ski show. We want to talk a bit about the Olympics, which is going to be featuring heavily of anyone who's interested in ski, and we'll just round up with a bit of information about early snow and what's going on the Alps. So if we look at the jump has sadly been cancelled. It was launched in 2014. I think that was an Olympic year, and it was hosted by Davina McCall. And there was lots of celebrities that took part in it, and essentially it was a show, or it still is a show, maybe, who knows, about celebrities who went out to a ski resort and they learnt lots of different disciplines, and obviously it culminated in them doing a ski jump. There were massive winners of huge celebrities such as Spencer Matthews, Joe McElderry, and I'm sure there's more. And also it attracted some other big names, didn't it, Iain?
It certainly did. I mean, a couple of, at least two Knights of the Realm appeared on the show, Sir Stephen Redgrave and Sir Bradley Wiggins. Not entirely sure how many Olympic medals they got between them, but a very large number, maybe 10 perhaps.
That is, yeah. And there was other Olympians. There was Beth Tweddle as well, I believe.
Oh yeah, Beth Tweddle. She was one of the ones who had unfortunately one of the worst injuries. I think she ended up being airlifted to hospital and fractured a couple of vertebrae in her neck when she was on the show.
So the reason we're talking about it, obviously, we're both huge fans of the show, but it's slightly old news now, I think. But as this is a new podcast and it's an important topic for anyone who loves skiing, that it's been axed or not axed, not renewed. For this current year. Iain, do you know why that was? Do you think it'll ever come back?
Yeah, well, I believe the reason that has been put out by the production company is that they don't want to conflict with the Winter Olympics coming up, because the Winter Olympics are in February. That has typically been some of the time that they've been filming, and it would make it difficult, so they'd have to put it on a bit later. So they're having a fallow year rather than have it later in the season. However, it possibly is a kind of softer way of letting the show kind of disappear. It has been very expensive to run, partly because of the actual huge amount of money they've had to spend on insurance and medical costs, because so many contestants have been injured during the course of the show. So with the viewing figures, slacking over time, even though there've been about 2 million people watching the show on a weekly basis, it probably, I think, I'll be surprised if we see the show again in 2019.
You don't think it was they were having trouble getting people to come onto it?
Right, okay. No, sadly, I think there's a big supply of B and C list celebrities, and enough, even if they're not very many A-list celebrities who want to try and increase their profile, so there'd always be people who'd want to go on the show. But I do think it's more of a commercial issue. In fact, in my research for this, I did find from the very reputable source, The Sun newspaper, they suggested that the current Channel 4 boss is about to leave, and he's the guy who commissioned the show. And normally what you find in television is when a new boss comes in, they want to commission their own type of shows, make their own kind of mark on the channel. So that could be another reason why it would be difficult to get it recommissioned for 2019.
Do you think people watch the show because they enjoyed seeing the journey, or do you think they liked watching the show for the sole reason of a car crash, of seeing someone injure themselves?
Well, it's got to be the latter, isn't it? I mean, I think with Ski Sunday, one of the most entertaining parts of it, if I'm allowed to say that, is when the crashes pile up. Watching people ski downhill. I mean, I'm a skier and I've been a skier all my life, but watching downhill is relatively unexciting. But if you fast forward it to the bits where someone has a crash and then watch that bit a few times, it's a bit more entertaining. And I think it got to the point with the jump where it was known for the accidents, so people were tuning in to see who would get injured next.
Yeah, well, I mean, definitely it was known as the most dangerous TV show. I think there was like 17 injuries, and like you said, Beth Tweddle was a really serious one. Tina Hobley still goes on about how she was really injured and she thought the show was quite dangerous. In fact, I met Tina Hobley on a beach the other week in North Devon, and I surprised myself with how much Tina Hobley information I had retained in my brain. I won't regale it now. But being the most dangerous TV show, and obviously this podcast will heighten our profile to probably maybe X-list celebrity. Would you be tempted to go on it if they recommissioned it?
To go on the show. I'd love to go on the show. They do all sorts of things that look great fun. I did actually go out to Kutai and I was there for some of the filming last winter. And the jump itself, when you see it on TV, it looks pretty tame. But actually, when you see it in real life, you need a fair amount of courage to go off that. But the actual, the slalom and the skier cross and the snow cross, all of those things look like great fun.
Yeah, I think the only thing would put me off was doing the jump, but then I suppose it's about pushing yourself.
Yeah.
So recently it was Listex, the London International Ski something exchange. I can't quite put my finger on it. That's right.
Yeah.
And that was held in Hemel at the Snow Dome. Is that correct?
Yeah, the Snow Centre, to give it its
the Snow Centre.
I think you have to put your trademarks between snow domes and snow centres. But the Snow Centre in Hemel Hempstead was where it was. There was an opportunity for people to ski if they wanted to, but we were kind of inside in an area set aside for people at that event.
So I was just wondering, Ian, you obviously attended the event. Can you just briefly tell everyone what actually Listex is? In my head, it's speed dating for ski businesses, but I think I may have been misinformed there. And can you just tell us what happened there and what you got out of it?
Yeah, well, I mean, you're not so far off the mark by calling it speed dating for a ski business. There's a couple of meeting rooms where British tour operators are meeting up with suppliers such as ski schools or ski hire companies or the resorts or property owners, and it's a continual relationship, but they're also sorting out contracts for the forthcoming season or details for the season. I'm personally not really involved in that side of things because I'm not working with taking people out to the Alps, but there is a forum going on at the same time over both days. It's a 2-day event, and that is an extremely valuable time. For me, it's partly about networking, but it's also about exchange of ideas. And there's an opportunity to give you an example. One of the sessions in the forum was called Ask the Editors, and they had a number of editors or publishers from the different magazines, and you could kind of literally just from the audience ask them what type of stories they're looking for, how do you get their attention, how do you get a press release through to them to get something published. And it's that kind of information is pretty useful, pretty interesting. There's a couple of other sessions that were more kind of technical about the path to purchase. I did a presentation about content marketing. There was a discussion about where the snow sports industry is going to be going in the future. And one of the most interesting sessions was called the Listex Dragon's Den, where you've got new businesses coming in and pitching to a number of experienced people from the industry, not necessarily for money, but maybe for advice or possibly for investment.
This sounds brilliant. Tell me one of the pitches.
Let me think.
Or are they all top secret? This isn't open to the public, is it? It's a members only Masonic club, is it?
No, you have to. I mean, you have to pay to attend the event. The Dragon's Den one is always interesting because you see different ideas, every year, and intuitively, I sometimes think, some of those it's just not going to work, and some of those, yeah, maybe with the right circumstances it could work. Um, there's one chap who was there. I'm wondering if I can get his details. I don't have it.
It's not Ski Walker, is it? He's still going.
Ski Walker. Remind me what that one is.
It's the handles that you can attach to your poles so you can carry
Yeah,
them
no, he
easier.
wasn't there. Axi Ski. Axi Ski is it kind of it's a sledge that's a bit like a snowboard. It's quite plastic and flexible, and it's just more fun than a sledge. You can stand up on it or lie down on it. It's not particularly expensive. It's about 25 pounds, something like that. It's a really good idea. He's got some good videos from it. He's produced it in the UK, which surprised me. But it made me feel a bit more supportive of his idea. And I think what he really needs is he needs a distribution partner. He needs to get it into Snow and Rock and Ellis Brigham. And if he could do that, then that one could really work. It was a really interesting idea, great kind of Christmas present-y type of thing. Some of the other ideas, without going into them, you just look at them and think, it's not going to come together. It's not going to work in the ski industry. But that was, regardless, that was one of the more interesting sessions for sure.
I think I might get a ticket next year,
Yeah.
if only for the Dragon's Den. Maybe I'll invent something and just pitch.
Well, maybe we can be pitching this podcast for the additional investment to take it up to a global level.
Yeah, maybe that's what we need. Investment in our podcast. If anyone's listening, you can invest in this. So let's move on. There's another show coming up, which is probably a bit more interesting to the general public. It's the ski show. It's on the 26th to the 29th of October, which is half-term week if you've got children. It's held in the Battersea Park, Battersea Evolution venue. It's in its third year there now, after various homes across London. It calls itself the London's Alpine Festival. Do you think that's a fair tagline to put to the show?
Alpine Festival. Yeah, I suppose so. They've got. I don't know whether they're just looking for an additional strapline beyond the ski and snowboard show. It always used to be, once upon a time the ski show, and then they realised that there were snowboarders around, so they had to call it the ski and snowboard show. And I guess by calling it Alpine, it means
they're including snowbladers.
or it just gives them the ability to sell tartiflette and say, look, we've got Alpine street food available.
I can never decide if I really like the ski show. For us who's worked in the industry, I think it's a different thing to go to because you're meeting, you're greeting, it's old friends, old faces, a bit of business, and then I've stood on stools for 5 days solid, so I've got a different feel about it. What's your take on it?
Yeah, I'd agree with you with that. It's quite hard to view it with fresh eyes, let's say, as if when you're not involved with the industry. I think now this kind of format where it does run just over 4 days is it reflects how things have changed since the internet has become dominant. You said you stood on a stand for 5 days. I have done the London show when it was over 10 days. It was over 2 weekends, and a lot of people came on 2 weekends, whereas now a lot more people go to the internet for their information. So there is a real obligation on the show to try and make sure there's a lot on. What I can.
And there also used to be four shows. There was a Scotland, Birmingham, Manchester,
there was one in
London.
Southampton as well, and there was one in Brighton.
Yeah. So like you say, the internet has
for
diminished.
sure. But in terms of going along, what I can say is that, but half term, my kids, I have 10-year-old twins. They came along last year, and they're going to come along this year. And there is loads for the kids going on. It's very entertaining. I can't remember whether they have to pay. I think only adults have to pay, and kids under a certain age are free. Just looking for that now. under 11 are free, exactly. So, I think it's worth going along as an adult. Take your kids along, and there's a whole bunch of activities they can do there. So many stands have kind of free things that you can try, and you can just go around grabbing pens and stickers. But there's ice skating and I don't know, balancing on uh, balance boards, I suppose. And there are athletes there as well this year. And I think in an Olympic year, that's probably going to be one of the more interesting draws as we lead on to that.
Absolutely. I mean, I'll back up what you said about taking children with you. Like last year was the first time I think I took the children, and I think I saw it differently as well because what they were engaged in, and they were 3 and 4, I think, at the time, and yet they were the best way to get as much free stuff as possible. They, like they would just go around, and at first they were a bit shy, and then they got the understanding to the point where they went to one store and just helped
Right.
themselves to stuff, and they were going, no, we're not giving that away. But my
Yeah.
child's walking
Your
down
kids
with
are
his new
probably
hoodie.
too young for it, but they were demoing a game there last year called Steep, which is an Xbox and probably a
Yeah,
PlayStation
yeah,
game,
yeah.
etc. And my son had a go on that. And to be honest with you, it was such fun. I mean, I do not like video games; it's not my kind of thing at all. But we bought a copy of Steep, and that is the only one that I play on his Xbox. It's a brilliant game, and we wouldn't have found out about it probably, or we certainly wouldn't have tried it if we hadn't have gone along to the ski show. So, from a commercial point of view, ironically, that is a digital product, but it was actually by going along and trying it that we ended up buying it.
And they also sponsored the innovation area, which I thought was
Right.
a nice addition. I think in the past, the innovation has been very dissipated, where it was actually concentrated, and you could see some really
Yeah,
interesting
I mean,
products
another
going
thing the
through.
kids tried was I can't recall off the top of my head now who had it, but someone had one of those VR sets. So it was like a Samsung Gear that you strap on and hold over your eyes, and it gives you 360 vision. And it gives you the sensation that you're skiing down a ski slope, and that was great fun as well. They really enjoyed that.
So to wrap up this segment, essentially the ski show is great if you want to take your children with you, learn more about skiing, and if you really like free stickers.
Yeah,
The
perfect.
build up to the Winter Games has started. Like everyone is talking about it, and I think within the snow sports industry, there's going to be a huge focus on the 2018 Games. I think first of all we need to get out of the way. How do you pronounce it, Ian?
Pyeongchang, I think.
Yeah, I was originally going for Pyeongchang, but that's wrong. Google pronounces it like this,
평창,
so very helpful to
평창,
Right.
Google.
평창,
There we go. So that's the correct term
평창,
and way of saying it. And we
평창.
also need to make sure that you don't get it confused with Pyongyang,
Yeah.
which is the capital of North Korea. I mean, not necessarily for you and me, more for athletes booking their tickets. They need to make sure they get
Yeah,
that
and
right.
also for Donald Trump.
Well, I was wondering, do you think Trump is purposely doing this because he knows he's got a really rubbish team for the Winter Olympics this year?
No, sadly, I don't think his thought process has gone that far. Really, he just when he does kind of press the button, let's just hope he works out which one is which.
Yeah, one opens the door, one of them blows up things. So, are you excited about it?
I'll be honest with you, I'm not particularly excited about it. The timings aren't very good for UK television viewers. But I guess I'm excited from the point of view that I think there's a reasonable chance. Last time we brought back a medal. Jenny Jones, won the first Alpine medal, and that was a great achievement. Helped put a lot of funding into the sport, and I think that will. There's a good chance that will return a couple of medals this time. Would be the hope there.
How did you? I mean, I remember when Jenny won that medal. I was at Centre Parks, Longley, and we all watched it together. And I don't know, I found it quite emotional for some strange reason. I don't normally get welled up, but it seemed like a really good sporting achievement for her and the way she did it. I mean, do you get emotional by that?
Yeah, of course. I mean, I think if you watched it live, then it does have more resonance. But she had been in the industry for a long time, and she probably wasn't favoured to win one. So it was great for her to be able to do it. I think there's a lot more expectation now.
There's a lot of
I
money's
think
been
someone
pumped in
who
now, isn't it? It's a huge investment.
a lot of money has gone into it for sure. That's how the funding works for Olympic sports. The more chance you've got of a medal, the more likely it is that you're going to get the money and the funding in there. And I think that the two to watch out for are probably Katie Ormerod and James Woods. They would be the two, but there could be other medals from different people as well. But based on the form over the last year or so, those two have consistently been getting podiums in pretty high profile events, so they stand a very good chance.
Well, yeah, James Woods just won, what is it, the New Zealand or the Down Under ski big competition down there. That's how much I know.
Yeah, I think
ski competition.
It was the X Games down there, was it?
And then Katie Ormerod last year, she won some FIS big games, and wasn't she the first female snowboarder to score a podium, a British one?
Well, unfortunately, I can't be 100% sure about
you,
that.
Ian. I was going for being the person with no knowledge, and you were going to be the person that corrected me.
Yeah. She's the first person to win a FIS event, because she won at least one big air event last year in the World Cup. So that was a first, and she also picked up a podium in the X Games as well on slopestyle. So she's regularly, I think last season she probably got half a dozen podiums, and so when you're bringing that sort of form in, then there's an extremely good chance that she'll pick something up at the Olympics.
I think you also know that you're doing quite well when the BBC decides to pick it up and run it as a news story, which I think she got.
Right. Okay. Not just on Ski Sunday, or
on
you
the
mean
actual news, I believe it was. So I think that's when you know someone's good. Also, there's just while we're on the Olympics, there's a lack of ticket sales. Do you think there's a reason? Do you think that's a Trump effect, or do you think just no one's interested in the location?
Or I'm sure South Korea has many people who are interested in skiing, but it's not known as a skiing destination. It is known as the location of Samsung, who is one of the Olympic sponsors. And I think that's probably, how the games ended up there. It was a, rotation thing. Call me cynical, but when it comes back to a country with a history of winter sports, then you'll probably see more ticket sales.
Absolutely. Maybe they could offer free repairs on their phone. I currently would book a ticket right now. And finally, so there's been a lot of snow in the Alps this last month or so. Like the middle of September, there was like 50 centimetres. Up to that was reasonably poor conditions up on the glaciers. And there has been snow recently in Maribel. There's been a lot in Teen. It's an interesting start or end to the season, whichever way you look at it. What do you think? Do you think we're going to see a continuation of snow? I know you're not a meteorologist.
It's September, October tomorrow. Is very early on. It was a very warm summer. A lot of the glaciers, lost a lot of volume during the summer. So great. It's been snowing a bit. That's really good. I was out in Chamonix last weekend, and there was snow from about 2,000. Snow around 2,300, 2,500 meters, which is not bad for that time of year. But I wouldn't get overexcited about anything at this stage. But so photos of snow in the autumn go down really well on social media. Let's hope they just keep coming in.
Yeah, I'd like to see. I'd love a really good winter season. And right now, where can we ski? Can we go skiing now?
Well, Zermatt is open all year round with the glacier up there, and you can always ski up there. I think Teen is opening this weekend, today even maybe. So you mentioned they'd had fresh snow there, so you can get up onto the glacier there. I think they're open 11 months a year. And out in Austria, Hintertux Glacier as well.
Solden, I think, is open. And then in about 10 days' time, I think some of the Canadian resorts starting open, such as Lake Louise. So there's lots of opportunities if you can afford it or want to go skiing.
Yeah, or if you want to go down to Australia. I mean, you're talking about like a good snow season.
Oh yeah,
they've been having a vintage season down there, and they're in their spring, very near to the closing dates now, and they've got a really good snow base, 160 centimetre snow base in Falls Creek, and still new fresh snow coming down. So if you're really desperate to get some skiing in, you could pop down there and still enjoy some good snow.
Or we could just go to a snow dome.
Or you could go to Snowdome. I mean, even I didn't actually ski when we were up at the snow centre the other day, but it's even kind of 100 metres of turns are better than none sometimes.
I think that might be a discussion for another podcast.
Okay,
I'm interested. I'm really interested in the development of the snow domes and how they've incorporated new talent and new ways of bringing punters in. But that is for another time. I think we've really run out of time today. Thanks for joining us, Iain.
No problem. Good to speak to Jim.
Okay, well, this has been the Knowledge is Powder podcast, and we'll catch you in the next one. The Knowledge is Powder podcast was produced by Jim Duncan.